Slide? Okay. Slide. Hi, folks. Thank you. Morning, afternoon, evening, and night. We are delighted today to have Ambassador Flores join us down from the United Nations. Welcome.
Thank you.
Ambassador is the ambassador of Honduras to the UN since 2010. She also was elected as the vice president of the UN General Assembly in 2012. She's a lawyer by training, and she brings a lot of experience holding political office back in Honduras, as well as being inside the UN, helping mobilize support for important international treaties and processes. So what I've asked Ambassador is to kind of let us know about how the UN works through her own, through issues that she's been involved with, and through examples that she can draw on. So we're delighted to have Ambassador here. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I'm delighted to be here. I haven't been in Colombia in terms of being able to give a dissertation of this kind. I was a student about 2 years ago at CIPA when I was studying the UN and human rights. So I'm usually sitting on the other side of the class, just like you guys. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and my background. I am the first woman to serve as the PR, permanent representative of my country, Honduras. My background is in politics. I'm also the first woman to preside the legislative branch of my country. I've served now as ambassador to the UN for 2 governments from my opposition party. And I have been here 4 years and some months. I started working with the Unity and Reconciliation government after the coup in 2009. I came here early 2010 and now have been reappointed with a new government that has a very progressive agenda, including embracing all the opportunities of this process, the SDG process. I am a political appointee working alongside 192 PRs from different countries. Some are diplomats, some are academics, experts in their field, politicians, businessmen and women. They come from all experiences and all walks of life. My strength is that I know my country well. The people, the political and social and economic dynamic. I know women. I'm a woman. At least I aspire to know women, youth, and I can work beyond party lines in politics and engage in national priorities. So this is what I can contribute to the discussion, only that there are so many aspects and there are so many other capacities that need to be present at these negotiation tables. In adopting a universal global commitment, you need leaders, teamwork, a strong knowledge and research base, and a framework that is open and inclusive for the most knowledgeable, for the experts, for whoever is bringing forth innovation, the thinkers, the people that are committed, responsible groups to the communities. And you need all types of sectors to be part of this agenda. So the question is, do we have this? Do we have this at the UN in this process? And I would say that we have some of it, but it's not all that it can be and should be. What we have is not the ideal, but under the circumstances, limitations, constraints, and through the only mechanisms that we are allowed and have, and we can achieve and adopt these commitments between countries from diverse and opposite agendas. So basically, in this context, this process and what we have in the resolution and what we decided to do is as good as it gets. So since I have arrived here, I am, like I said, more a student like you. I learn and discover something new every day. Like Aristotle had said, all I know is that I do not know anything. So in terms of this and being placed with a responsibility in putting forth the agenda of my country in regards to other countries in the world agenda, I invite you to ask yourselves, we have to think every day if we're more pessimistic about the future or we're more optimistic about the future. And I'm very optimistic about the future. I see this as a unique opportunity, a new era of challenges, but also of being able to face and make front to those challenges and to work together. And in terms of this, I also came here to the UN with a great understanding of the MDG process. The MDG process for my country, for other countries, and how it impacted globally. So I don't know if you know, but this SDG process stems from the MDG process. It was adopted in the year 2000, and it was taking place in a period of 15 years, and we're coming close to the completion of these MDG goals or the realization of them. And so now we have to decide whether we keep on going with the same agenda we put forward or something that's more adequate to our evolving times. So that's why we came up and we decided that it would be very much like the MDGs, and all of these important issues were not going to be left behind, but it was going to be more ambitious, and it was going to have a whole lot of all issues that were not considered, that were left out of the MDG agenda, and that we considered them to be now more important. So how does this SDG process work? It's a long story. It was here way before my time. I mean, Honduras is a founding member state of the UN and has participated in all the different processes and discussions. And when the term kind of began to be coined and used at the UN, we were there, sustainable development and what this all means. But it came together really as a proposal or a process. And this stemmed from the Earth Summit in 1992. There was a Commission on Sustainable Development. Then that evolved, and it became a United Nations high-level political forum. And it's 2012, I think, is the year. And from here, they decided to put together some sort of proposal that would be this SDG. We had meetings. Meetings in terms of many different aspects and issues. And when we're saying we, I'm talking about member states, countries. Countries are the ones that are responsible for negotiating and putting together this SDG agenda. Why member states? Because we are the UN. The UN is made up by 193 member states, so it's up to us. Why why are we adopting this as representatives, governments, and member states? Because we have the responsibility to abide by them, abide by the commitments, and implement them. So what does this mean? It's the governments of today, the documents or the commitments will be in place starting 2015, and they have been discussed throughout all of these years, and maybe there have been previous governments that have contributed to this, but the governments that will be adopting the documents and will kind of have to start implementing it or overseeing it are the ones stemming from 2015. So in terms of them being able to accommodate this and transition from the MDG agenda to the SDG agenda, they have, all these governments will need support and will need help just as they needed to come up with these commitments and to come up with this process. And so I'm not going to go and give you all the history of all of these meetings and all that has been taking place and all the different agendas and issues. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the SDG goals because we already at least have those. We concluded in 17 goals, which I say is a wish list. It's like your Christmas wish list. I mean, these are all things that countries desire, that we expect, and that we agree on, and that we will be implementing in a very unique and flexible way to the reality of our countries, but all of these happening at the same time. And we'll be measuring them and comparing all of these SDGs during the same period of time. So the first one is end poverty in all forms, everywhere. That's continuation from the MDG agenda. End hunger. So that's part of what you all study, food security, nutrition, sustainable agriculture. Number 3, ensure healthy lives, well-being to all ages. 4, inclusive, equitable, quality education. Promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Sounds wonderful. 5, achieve gender equality, empower women and girls. So that's more of the MDG agenda coming forward or continuing. 6, availability, water, sanitation for all. 7, ensure access for affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And what that all means. 8, promote sustained, inclusive economic growth, full and productive employment, decent work for all. That's a great challenge for us right now in this country and in in developed countries. Nevertheless, in developing countries, just the same. 9, resilient infrastructure, inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. That one I like because my country is very unequal in terms of other countries, not only in our neighborhood, but also in the Americas. 11, make cities, human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The idea that more people are moving into cities and cities are a key factor also in reaching development for all of these people. So how you manage that and how you manage it in a proper and sustainable way. 12, ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. But there's a slight um, amendment in terms of how it's done, because we only can do it through the UNFCCC Intergovernmental Forum, and that's a structure where we all come together and negotiate on climate change. So it has to be through this mechanism, and it's still being talked about and discussed in this UNFCCC summit, and the discussion on climate change and the agreement is not coming until 2015. So it's supposed to coincide. 14, conserve the use and good use of oceans, seas, marine resources. 15, protect, restore, promote sustainable terrestrial ecosystems, manage forests, halt and reverse degradation, and protect biodiversity. And 16, promote peaceful and inclusive societies, access to justice, build effective and accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels. 17, strengthen the means of implementation, revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. So we have goals that are visionary, transformative, very ambitious. I think that if I told my children I'm going to give you all of these 17 things or ensure these for you, I wouldn't be able to comply with a lot of them. If for my country, just 8 of the MDG agenda, I think we're going to be able to achieve or to complete or attain 3 or 4 of them. So can you imagine dealing with 17 different issues? But there is no way around it. I mean, and it's a good agenda. We all want these things, even though we might not have the resources, we might not have the know-how, the capacity, the available infrastructure or whatever it is that we need to take to make it happen or for it to take place, but we have to do it. And the interesting thing about all this, the 17 goals in the agenda, is that they're interlinked. One depends on the other. And so if it's not holistic, if you don't have everything, you don't have development, and development in terms of a sustainable matter. So we have to figure out how we work all of this in terms of applying it to our local, national, and regional realities. So a lot of the criticisms that we've heard from member states is that maybe these are too many goals and targets. It's a little bit too much, like I said. Some of them, this is not enough. You have to pursue a more aggressive, holistic agenda. There are things that are left out. There's based on 3 pillars, social, economic, and the environment. Some say what happens to rule of law, what happens also to the cultural aspect of things, what about governance and the political. It's just there, but it's not really, there's no evaluation on it, no indicators for it. So how much does that democracy impact all of these things? These are things that are they're incipient, they're outlined, but they're not the priority in terms of, or the most important aspects in terms of this agenda. How about human rights? I mean, yes, there are things, and in terms of all of our agreements and conventions and commitments, you have the human rights aspect, but it's not it's not throughout the document strengthened in every way. All of these aspects are not outlined in terms of how you deal with them in terms of this new century and what is to come. So there are a lot of things that have been discussed and that were not prioritized in the agenda. So they're supposed to come afterwards. And a lot of these aspects, we're going to see them like governance, rule of law, coming together this year and part of the next before the report of the Secretary General, the synthesis report in terms of financing, how we're going to finance all of these sustainable development goals. Is it going to be more ODA, more of countries' commitments? There's an agreement also to bring in the private sector, the civil society to be able to partner. And I mean, there's all these entities that are within the UN and all the different groups and sectors coming together that kind of feed this agenda, but are not really the ones that decide upon it. So, I mean, if you have governments deciding and adopting a document, but you want the private sector to finance this document, I mean, is it really going to happen? That's one of the questions. And how can you make it happen? How can you address other sectors in society that can contribute to come along and for it not to be only stemming from the central government in itself? How can you incorporate groups that are part of this agenda to come together and propose solutions and implement them? That is the challenge in itself. And in terms of my country, right now, this is for us also an experiment. It's the MDGs, I think, were positive and helped us in many ways. And Honduras has achieved development in certain areas, but they weren't the answer in terms of many other things that are lacking. And so will this SDG plan be the answer for the people that are living in extreme poverty, who right now are living in very insecure environments? Will this be the answer for our children who are fleeing from violence? I mean, Honduras is what the media calls the murder capital of the world. And supposedly we are not part of a conflict, but for us, the drug war is a conflict, just like what you see in war and what's happening in Syria or in Iraq. But in terms of the UN, this is considered something else, another type of phenomenon. And what will this mean in terms of also the world being more conscientious and more empathetic and being able to help you out in terms of all of these problems that we didn't initiate, we didn't cause. We think that there is a responsibility that should be shared from other countries, and a lot of other things in terms of all this ambitious agenda, where the source and also the solution comes from a regional or international perspective. How are we going to come together and manage this agenda in terms of it being a practical, accessible, and making a difference for the generation of the Sustainable Development Goals post-2015. So in terms of the information that I can relate to you, this is what I know now. maybe next year or in another year, I will have more input for you about how will this happen, how will this be financed, how are we going to start implementing it or adopting it, how government is going to accommodate. But now, I mean, we're in the middle of the process, and we're hoping that this is the best we can do with it. So thank you very much, and I'm open to any of your questions in terms of my country perspective, or whatever you want to know that I can answer about the UN and the UN system as a whole. Thank you.
Any questions on the screen?
Okay. The first one? Okay. How to empower the citizens on important issues such as governance, transparency, and accountability. That would be the first one. Well, thank you. I knew when I was studying we didn't have all of this. So this is a great tool. I think that this precisely what we're doing today is the way you empower citizens, how you can teach them and make them participate in governance and learn about these issues. Because if people on the ground living their everyday realities don't understand what all this means on paper, it is not going to happen for a country. It is not. I mean, central government and bureaucracy cannot be everywhere, do everything. And especially in my country, we learned that to have success in anything, people have to live it and have to know it. We have a few things that are very well put together and that work extremely well in my country, and I always ask myself, why does this happen and not other things? One is our vaccination program. Vaccination for the last 20 years, Honduras has vaccination indicators of maybe 90-something%. I mean, we've been awarded by the health organization of the UN a lot of awards in terms of how well these programs work. And people from very poor communities, they know it's vaccination period or time. And there's a whole lot of volunteers, a lot of people studying medicine or working in the health sector that come together. They go all over the country, very remote areas, and they vaccinate children. And mothers understand what vaccination means. They are open to it. They trust the doctors. So in terms of being able to afford the medicine, thanks to also the UN processes in the international community, if it's available, and there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that give very generous donations, we can vaccinate great number of children and have success in all these campaigns. So that's something that works because people understand it, and people kind of demand it. I mean, if they don't get their vaccinations that year or whatever, people will complain. Then there's another process which started a couple of years ago during the Millennium Goals, and it's the meal program in schools. A lot of you probably know this because this is something that's been adopted in many parts of the world. And so meal program kind of started in some schools as an experiment, and then parents kind of learned about it, children, teachers. Now it's something that also, if there is not a meal program in the school and children are not getting fed, people will complain and will make it happen. And really the work is mostly, or the participation in the contribution also, I mean, it kind of originated from government or from the UN when they started this program, but now it's up to them. I mean, parents contribute with the vegetables. So, I mean, a lot comes, especially from our country. We've adapted it, even though prices might be a little higher from local goods, from agriculture, from the community. So, I mean, it's a process that is very holistic, and it's helping out people, members of the community that are participating and are being part of all of these processes. So they know each other and they're engaged. I mean, the teachers know the farmers, and then the farmers know that they're contributing to the children. So, I mean, if you can start small with all of these things and build big and build on a national level, you're going to have more success than if you just implement these things, at least in my country, from the top down. So that's our experience. So for the next question, let me see. Governance and accountability is an educational process that takes place between the participation of the state and the population. What are the minimum conditions to build transparency and in participatory societies? I believe that transparency is a key thing, because, I mean, the checks and balances, seeing that there is justice, that there's responsibility in the way all these things are dealt with, or from the part of government, from the part of private business, from civil society. And we in my country have processes where people will come together in the community. You'll do these town meetings, and they'll come and they'll say what they want, their priorities are, what they need. Also, they will complain a lot. And these are open meetings. Some of them take place for hours or for days. And people can say anything they want. They can complain about their neighbor, and they can complain about the schools. Sorry. They can complain about anything they see that is not to their liking. So that opens up a space. I mean, if you can openly say what you're thinking, to be able to be part of this process. But I mean, we just don't want people criticizing and complaining. I mean, the idea is also ask not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country, as Kennedy said. So we want these people to be empowered and to be part of the process, and also they being able to not only check and balance things, but contribute for the mechanisms of implementation can be done in a better way. Maybe it's not because government is abusive, corrupt, or lazy. Maybe it's just that the people that they have or that they employ don't know better. They get rid of them, they get somebody else, and maybe it's not happening. So what can the community do to get people that are better, that are more responsible, that are accountable? There's another thing that we started in Honduras, but I mean, it's still small, and it's these schools that don't depend from the government, the centralized system, the public schools. They are community schools. So the parents, they pick the teacher and they pay the teacher. And so they know if the teacher didn't show up, and they're the ones who are responsible for paying the salary, so it all works out. You know, they're responsible to each other. While in the public system, you need a great deal to be able to reprimand, to not pay a teacher. They go to court, and so it's more complicated. In this setting, it's an agreement, and it works. Especially in places in distant communities where government cannot oversee. So how do you get the people to be part of the system without being an obstacle to the system. That's the idea. And for people to be more generous, to contribute, to volunteer, because I mean, for a lot of this that's taking place, not even the richest governments have enough money to be, dispensing it, so people can collaborate with things that they think the government should do. So you need people at different levels with different sets of commitments coming together to work this, because they just believe that it's better for their communities, and this will help their children. I mean, basically, that's why you do something for the next generation and whatever future they will inherit, because you believe that children and everyone, I mean, not only in my country, all over the world, deserve better opportunities and a better future. So that's kind of the idea. I think that all of us who are representatives of member states have, how do you do the best with what you have and what you can offer to people that are growing up right now in the SDG process. So let me see, the next one is, I think, how is Honduras engaging stakeholders in country, particularly rural and low-income people, on the SDG process and goals? Okay, now one interesting thing was that for this SDG process, they did experimental consultations in countries. The agency UNDP, I don't know if some of you might know it, some of you might not. The Agency for Development did this sort of consultation process in my country, asking about priorities in the transition to the SDG process. So they asked people about governance, they asked them about civil society, they asked them about issues that had to do with human rights. And so they put together, I mean, the results of all these consultations and sort of survey. I mean, this is important and this is not important to the Honduran people. This is who they acknowledge as responsible sectors in society, and so on and so forth. And so like this consultation, other countries had different ones about different issues, about risk management, about the environment. But in Honduras, it was basically, I think, mostly about governance and the different levels of participation and, I guess, openness in society for all these sectors to engage. So that was helpful, but you're gonna need more. So we're talking with UN agencies, also with the Secretariat. I'm very involved also, not only here in the UN, I go back to Honduras and I work with UN resident coordinator who oversees the whole system and the agencies. And we work also talking to government and to other sectors and trying to see how to prepare people to understand the SDGs and how to see how they can come together for their implementation. Because like I said, already the 17 are adopted. If people come to me right now and say, well, you should have 18 goal, such and such, and it's not happening unless, member states come together and do something out of the box. So this is what we have to work with. The idea is how you link this to what people can do and what they can achieve in their daily lives and what they can construct together. And you can have a very poor child in Honduras, that if that child receives nurture, care from his parents, a secure environment, proper nutrition, education, I mean, maybe the education there in his community won't be that wonderful. I mean, it'll be maybe math, some, what is it, a vocabulary, Spanish. You might have them learn certain things that are beneficial to them in their community, maybe some sort of initial steps for agriculture, or maybe fishery, whatever, and then basically I mean, what it takes for them to become a responsible member of society. But if you wanted more, I mean, if you wanted that kid in primary, secondary, and then in the university to be able to come here to Columbia or to Harvard or Stanford or Oxford or any of the universities, that you have to be very intelligent, and you have to take all these tests and be prepared and have a certain level or degree, and somebody would give this kid a scholarship. It's happened before. It can happen now. How many of these kids can we prepare to be at the level of kids in the best universities? A lot of them. I mean, they have the capacity. They can learn. They can become responsible members of society. In terms of global citizenship, which is another thing that I could address here, because there's a whole concept behind it. What does it take to be a global citizen? How you teach global citizenship. So you can do this with kids in my country. It's only because government would like to do it. I mean, government would like to give all these kids quality education if they could afford it. And I'm sure the parents would like this too. The teachers would be also very supportive. If somebody would support them to be able to teach more or to learn more and then apply it to whatever they tell their students, they would be very happy. So how do we establish all of these partnerships for the future? How many universities around the world would like to engage and partner with schools or universities in poor countries like Honduras? We're yet to see. Let me see. Compared to the MDGs, how were developing countries given more overall participation in the creation of the SDGs? If possible, please give me examples. Well, when we say developing countries, that it's kind of a term that really doesn't fit the reality of today. I mean, it's now I was reading in the New York Times a couple of months ago an article talking about Bill Gates and him talking about lean and fat economies, which is really interesting because since my country comes from a lean economy, I mean, and our footprint is very small in terms of the footprint of the United States or developed countries. I would say that it gives a new perspective, and it makes my country be recognized as something where there is not scarcity, but there is potential. Like many countries in Africa that are anything, I mean, with limited resources, with limited support, they can do so many things. And also, you can start everything anew. I mean, in cities like New York, I mean, if you wanted to design or build sustainable infrastructure in line to the expectations of the new generation of today, I mean, it would only be possible somewhere where you haven't constructed anything. I mean, you would have to refit different buildings to do that. But sometimes it's just better to knock them down than to be refitting them again. I mean, we just recently did that. We remodeled and took all the asbestos from the walls of the UN building. I don't know if you guys have seen their different stages of construction throughout this year, last year. And I mean, now we're back to the old building, but it was, I mean, it was more costly to do this than to tear it down and to build a new UN building. So is it worth it? Yeah, maybe because it's patrimony and because it's a landmark in New York. But how much of this is worth it in terms of cities? So in Honduras, the good thing is that you can build practically anything new. And it's more flexible. And so like a lot of developing countries or lean countries, to say the least. So how is their participation? I think we have a common point of view, and this will help in the financing process and discussions, and this will also help in the implementation. Whatever strategy we come up with for countries like Honduras, it will be very similar to countries, like I said, in Africa that have or same basic necessities and challenges, and that rural communities are very similar in terms of what they're lacking and what they can offer in terms of resources, people, anything that will contribute to this agenda. So I think right now, in terms of what we've agreed to, they have been there contributing, like I said, with their wish list. I mean, you can see different things in terms of rural communities. You can see also things about minority groups, indigenous people, going back to the reality in countries in terms of their identity, because a lot of what we have implemented also comes from especially in my country and land countries, from a westernized model or system. So what if we would go back to pre-Columbian times, before we knew how the Spanish or colonial countries kind of governed, and we went to a more community indigenous model and kind of redesigned it to fit this age and the new realities? What if we did that? What if we, I mean, there was kind of a movement, and for you that know Latin America, what's been happening in politics and governance, and some countries changed their legislation or their constitutions to incorporate more things about the environment. I mean, constitutions maybe in Peru and Ecuador talk about Mother Earth, La Pachamama, and I mean, something in terms also of community resources, not individual property, how it was seen before, because we have a very liberal constitution. So all of these trends, I mean, kind of were happening also because of a lot of the processes inside the UN and the recognition finally of all of these groups and people. And that kind of development wasn't only coming through this perspective, but was also a reality in different dimensions in terms of new designs that could be applied, or that could be invented, or using old things that, I mean, everything, even though it's new, is kind of something that stems from something else, I mean, from the beginning of time. So in our case, maybe it would be also something, what is it, very helpful to go back to the times of the Mayan civilization. I mean, you have in Mexico, you have the Aztecs, in also Peru, you have the Incas. And from that, you're getting many information that people just in their communities were aware of, but the international community wasn't aware of all of this before, or how it could be used to benefit them. And then you have now movements like the quinoa movement that I'm sure also here in New York is very big, and how this is very nutritional and can be applied to different foods. That stems from the indigenous culture. So if we could do this for our countries, kind of discover, educate ourselves, go back and see if these models are more of a model that works for our reality, that would be interesting. I'm not sure if that's the key, because in terms of all of these years that Honduras has been part of the UN and has been part of all of these systems, and saying, how come you are how you are right now? How come you haven't moved forward? How come you're not more developed or industrialized? It could be that we've tried all these different things and they didn't work for us, or it wasn't the best model. It could be that we were lacking in many aspects. It could be that we are more vulnerable, or to natural disasters, to famines, to droughts, many things. So we have to go back and kind of study what it is that we haven't been doing or why we have failed, and also look at the positive aspects, where we have success, where have we not failed, what can we contribute? What can we contribute to our neighbors, also in Central America, what we can contribute to the region as a whole, what we can contribute to other Americas. I mean, I tell a lot of our friends, the bigger countries in the Americas that think that they have to lead the pace, or that, whatever development is going to come from them downward. And so you have in the Americas, US, Canada, then Mexico developing. Okay, eventually Central America, it's going to happen for you. I tell them, well, it's like, I see the Americas like an organ in your body, or your system. We're the central part of the Americas that connects North and South. And or we're like a bridge. So if it's dysfunctional, if it's broken, if something is obstructed, things are not going to flow. So the body won't be healthy, or your system won't be healthy. So you need a Central America that is developing, where people are achieving, where they feel they can contribute, not only to strengthen the region, but to be able to contribute to the North and to the South. And now that we've been having this crisis in Honduras, humanitarian crisis, in terms of children migration, we can see that it's a very complex problem, that it's not about building a wall, or it's not about taking these people and relocating them somewhere. It's about dealing with the human issue. It's about considering what's the implication, not only in our case, in Central America's case, or the Northern Triangle in terms of the US, because this is very similar to what's happening to Europe in terms of the African migration. So this agenda is an opportunity to see how we can deal with this migration in a positive way. Look at what already migrants contribute to the economies. Look at remittances, how many countries, that's their primary sector. You can see stats in the Bangladeshi economy. It's mostly from people sending remittances. But if you have this older generation, like in Honduras after Hurricane Mitch, a lot of people, the agriculture sector was collapsed, infrastructure, so you had to do a lot of things and rebuild. But some people decided that they couldn't wait that long to, the banana industry, I mean, 70% of the crops were lost. It was going to take 10 to 12 years, 15, to be able to have a crop, banana crop, because it takes longer to develop. And so in the meantime, while you were doing different things to provide people jobs, some of them migrated. So they came to the United States, and then you have the problem of children growing up without their parents, what that does to them. So migration has positive aspects economically, but then it can have drawbacks, because then you see their children, the parents, hard workers, came to the United States, or just like the immigrants that go to Europe, go do construction jobs, work in the agricultural sector, do things, but their children may be now delinquents, so they come to the countries, and instead of contributing, they're an expense. So, I mean, you have to look at things in an integral and a holistic way. And I think that this agenda will help us do more of that. So I'm very positive in that sense. I'm not sure that this will resolve all our problems. I mean, that the wish list will be something that will be helpful to everyone. But I mean, we can do our best, and we can try. Thank you.
Thank you. What we'd now do is, I see that some of the questions are from the MDP students here at Columbia.
Okay.
So we'll have a short break, come back, and then Ambassador, along with our senior faculty from Earth Institute, Dr. Jana Rubenstein, will address the class, and we'll have a much more open kind of discussion.
Okay. All right.
Okay? So thank you again.
Thank you.
And goodbye, guys. See you next week.